So, I was watching an NBA game the other day, and I was like, man, this sucks. So I watched something else. Then the next day, I was watching an NBA game again, and I was like, man, this sucks again. So I watched something else. Then today I was thinking, man, maybe the NBA just sucks now. It's probably a little too far. I don't think the whole NBA sucks, but we'll get into why it does or doesn't suck. Let's go over some things, and then y'all let me know what you think about how the NBA is looking these days. First thing, really quick, I had a fat 4 subscribers. Thank you to my 4 subscribers. We're trying to make it to 10 by the end of the day. If we can do that, that would be awesome. So please subscribe if you enjoyed the video and you haven't yet. But right back to it. I don't know where to get started. Guess we'll get started with the 80s. That's probably the best place. Everyone has their NBA era they think is the best. I think a lot of it's just nostalgia for the most part, to be honest. My my era would probably be mid 2000s, honestly, mid to later 2000s. Um, I'm a Spurs fan, so uh, Tim Duncan Spurs, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili. Watching Kobe Bryant, watching Shaq. Kobe was one of my favorite players to watch, even though he had a good rivalry and we'd have battles with Kobe's Lakers and the Spurs. We have some crazy battles, and I'll get to this later in the video, but it was bad blood between us basically. All the playoff games, we weren't shaking hands with them before the games or anything like that, or making jokes and hee hee ha ha whatever, um, like a lot of the guys do these days. By the time the playoff series was over, then we would go and shake hands with Kobe and Shaq and whoever if they beat us or if we beat them, they'd come and shake our hands. And it was, personal respect at the end of the day as far as that goes. But before the series would start, we're not shaking hands. It's all good, bad blood, if that makes sense. And that's one thing I think is kind of missing in today's game. I've heard people argue these guys are all making so much money and this and that, and they grow up buddy buddy. And I think that's fine, to be friends with the guys and be friends in the off season and whatnot. But before the game start, you need to leave that at home. That's just my opinion. Please let me know what you think. But with that being said, we'll get started with the 79-80 season. This is when NBA basketball basically started for most people. If you see here, this is the season right here when the 3-point line was introduced. So, of course, there were basketball seasons before this. I don't even know, is this really 46, 47? Was that really the first season in the NBA? That's crazy. If we were that far back. Was it 50? I know the NBA ABA merger happened at some point. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. But yeah, NBA's been going on a long time. But we'll get started with the 79-80 season. This is when a lot of people probably became fans of the NBA. Some of the more old head fans. But yeah, this is where I'll get started because this is the first season when Magic Johnson won his first championship. And again, like I was saying, Magic was probably one of the main guys, or actually definitely one of the main guys who brought a lot of the popularity to the NBA. He's doing flashy behind the back passes and doing all this cool stuff, and just being Magic Johnson, and that brought a lot of popularity. But yeah, these highlighted seasons you see here is when Magic won his 5 championships. So he won 80, 82, 85, 87, and 88. But anyway, what we're going to be comparing for a lot of the video is going to be pace, offensive rating, then of course 3-point attempts. I knew I was going to be talking about that. You can't compare eras without talking about the 3-point shooting, but we'll get into that. We'll get into that later. I won't start talking about that quite yet. Otherwise, I'll get way way off subject. We'll be talking about 3-point shooting for too long. But, so right here, 79-80, when Magic Johnson won his first championship. You see here, 109 points per game. So I'm sure people are probably thinking that the league was slow back then, this and that, 80s ball was slow or whatever. But it really wasn't. The game was fast. It was an up and down game back then. If you look at 3-point attempts, yeah, it was only three-point attempts per game to 2.3. Basically three or so average back in that time. But if you see, the pace is 103.1. Offensive rating was 105 during that 1980 season. Real quick, if you don't know what pace means, I'm sure you hear the word all the time. They always talk about the pace, but the pace is the possessions per 48 minutes. So the game's 48 minutes long. In those 48 minutes, they were averaging 103 possessions in that 1980 season. Basically, what that means, the more shots that are being taken, the more possessions there's going to be throughout the game, of course. So with there being 103, with the pace rather being 103 in that 1980 season, we'll start comparing the paces from other seasons, but you'll kind of see that's a high pace of play there. Again, we'll compare paces to other eras, but people kind of have the misconception, back in the 80s it was slow pace, and that wasn't really the case. That was more the mid 90s to early 2000s when the pace was very slow. But anyways, with that being said, pace was 103, offensive rating was 105. Offensive rating is going to be the points scored per 100 possessions. So it's just an indicator of basically how efficient the offenses were during whichever season we're comparing. But yeah, pace was 103, offensive rating was 105 during that 1980 season. So this is high pace and high offensive rating. Teams were running up and down. It was kind of a run and gun era, to be honest, in the 80s. But yeah, Magic wins that championship with the Lakers. 3-point attempts are very low. Pace and offensive rating are I won't say very high, but they're high at that time. Magic wins again in 82. Pace is 101. Offensive rating is 107. Again, 3-point attempts are 2.3, so no one's attempting threes. No one really is attempting very many threes during this Magic Johnson Lakers era. But points per game, 109 points per game. 1985, when Magic wins his third championship, 111 points per game. Pace is at 102, so pace is high. Points per game is high as well. 108 offensive rating. So his first championship was 105. His second, it was 107. Then his third, it was 108. So people are just getting better and better at basketball, needless to say. Even though they're not shooting three balls yet, offenses are getting more developed. Assists per game are going up as well. So, people are just learning how to move without the ball better, learning how to play better as a team. Like I said, just as offenses are developing and as players, such as Magic, freak athletes are coming into the league and just being able to I don't want to say impose their will on the game. That's more for Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, those guys. But Magic's able to impose, I guess, his intelligence on the league, his basketball IQ. But yeah, basically pace is high, offensive rating is high. Again, like I said, it's a misconception that people like to think it was slow in the 80s because it was not slow back then. But then, yeah, 87, 88, Lakers go back to back. That's Magic's fourth and fifth championship. Again, offensive ratings 108 back to back those seasons, so very, very high offensive rating. See the pace right here. It's at 101 and then 100, so still high pace. And then points per game, 110 and 108. So high scoring league at the time. So points per game is high, pace is high, offensive rating is high. During the 80s the 80s, when Magic is winning his championships. A lot of people say, oh, best basketball era ever, Magic versus Larry Bird, up and down, run and gun 80s era. I'm 31, so I'm too young to really, I wasn't born, of course. I'm not going to remember this era. I've seen videos of the games and things like that. But I'm sure if I was alive to watch the era, I'm sure it probably was very exciting and very fun to watch. But again, I can only see it on tape. But basically, the point is one more thing: five 3-point attempts per game now. So Magic's first championship, they were at 3. Now they're at 5 per game. So not even close to what they're taking now. But 3-point attempts are starting to get up a little bit. Nothing Again, nothing crazy though. It's just starting to get incorporated into the game. But yeah, with Magic, pace is high, offensive rating is high, points are high, 3-point attempts are low. What people complain about in today's game, we'll get to it again in a second. Of course, there's a 3-point attempts being too high. I would agree with that point. But what people are really complaining about, myself included, the game's just kind of boring to watch. Teams don't really have their own offensive identities. There's not a lot of variance in the game, where people have different games, offensive players have different games. It's kind of just ball movement and shooting threes for the most part. But the point I was coming to back here in the 80s, like I said, it's the entertainment value, and entertainment value was very high. Larry Bird's Celtics, Magic Johnson's Lakers, very entertaining teams to watch. They're making sacrifices for the league. I want to say making sacrifices. They're still making very great money, at the time compared to some other people. But yeah, not nearly what the guys are making today, and they're helping to build the league up and up into what it turned into. And they leave Michael Jordan in great hands. These other highlighted years are Michael Jordan's 2 three-peats. So 91, 92, 93, he three-peated with the Bulls. 96, 97, 98, the Bulls three-peated again. 94 and 95, Jordan had left to go play baseball. Didn't go too well, but still the GOAT basketball player in most people's eyes. But again, 91, 92, 93, he three-peated with the Bulls. Let's see here. See this your offensive rating? That was actually that was Magic's last year's there. Yeah, if you see right here, this is your offensive rating in that Bulls first three-peat. So 108, 108, 108, all 3 of those years. So offensive rating is still high. Here's your pace. This can be your pace. 98, 97, 97. So the pace isn't not quite as high. That first championship Magic won with the Lakers, pace was 103, so that's crazy. Just really fast running gun pace. His last championship was 100 still. Or Jordan, it's still a decent pace, not super slow, but kind of a mid-level pace. But yeah, 98, 97, 97, and then just about 108 for the offensive rating. They're scoring roughly 105, 106 points per game in his first championship, but points per game are fairly high. That's a good points per game average. Again, if we here's 3-point attempts. So 7, 7.5, and then 9 3-point attempts for his last championship, or his last championship of his first three-peat. 9 3-point attempts per game. One impressive thing about Jordan, I'm going to get into it right now. A lot of impressive stuff about him, of course, but one thing I'm going to mention, he left for those 2 years to go play baseball in the league. I won't say completely changed, but it changed a lot, the whole play style, and a lot of things changed about the league. You see here. So here's the pace. Like I said, that first three-peat, the pace is basically 90, 97, about 97 average. Again, your pace is going to be your, here, I'll show you right here. That's not popping up again here. But anyway, it's your possessions per 48 minutes is your pace. So his first three-peat, they're averaging about 97 possessions per game. Second three-peat goes down to basically 91 possessions per game. So the pace has gone down, about 6 possessions per game from his first three-peat to his second. So it's gone down a lot. The pace has gone down a lot. Offensive rating, it's gone down a bit, but it's still roughly 106 average. So that hasn't gone down too much. That's impressive as well for the pace to go down as much as it did, and the offensive rating to still be that high for Jordan and the Bulls. Of course, he's a giant reason why the offensive rating is so high still. Another thing, in one way, the game pretty much totally changed while he was gone. Shows how much the game changes in just 2 years. His first championship three-point attempts are at 7.1 per game. And then his fourth championship, so his first championship of the second three-peat, they're at 16 threes per game, 17 for that second championship, then down to 13 for his sixth championship. But it just goes to show how, even back then, the three ball started to get recognized as a real weapon, and people started to use it more. But it still was not an issue like it is. People debate that whether it is or is not today. I think a lot of people will agree that too many are being taken at this point, too many three balls. But right here, as you can see, it was a sizable jump in that time. A lot more threes started getting taken. But again, people weren't complaining about it at that time. Basketball was as entertaining as it's ever been. A lot of people would argue during Jordan's three-peats. That was kind of the peak of basketball for a lot of people. But yeah, offense rating still high. Pace did drop a lot, like I was saying. It was 98 in his first championship, down to 90 for his sixth championship. So remember, pace is 100, or rather possessions per 48 minutes. So he had 98 possessions per 48 minutes in the first championship, down to 90 possessions per 48 minutes in that sixth championship. So pace is slowing down a lot. Like, that's a big drop off in pace. And then you get into 98-99 here. This one, the Spurs won their first championship, and pace is down to 89 per game for the pace. I don't know if you guys remember this championship when the Spurs won, but I was a lot younger at the time as well. I was probably 6 years old, but I do remember, watching videos and whatnot from it. And I remember our play style back then. It was just all about getting the ball in the post to Tim Duncan, to David Robinson, and then just playing lockdown physical defense. And, we're trying to get all of our shots late in the shot clock and just grind teams down and just play as slow as we can, basically. Back then, that's just all I knew. I was just starting to kind of watch basketball. So I didn't think it was anything crazy personally at the time because, I'm just a kid watching basketball. Spurs won a championship. I'm happy here in San Antonio. But, the pace is very slow. It dips under 90, which is crazy. Offensive rating's at 102 at that time. So offensive rating is still decent for the offensive rating. But this is like some of the slowest times in NBA history, probably the slowest times in NBA history since they started to keep track of pace right here. Yeah, after 99, going into the early 2000s, you see a lot. Probably 91 is about the average. So that's a really slow pace. Again, Jordan's last championship, it was at 90, but going towards the end of Jordan's last three-peat, that's when the pace started to drop a lot. But yeah, early 2000s, it's down around 91. If you see here, stays around 91, gets up to 92 for that 2007-2008 season. Spurs win right here, that 2007 season. Pace is at 92, so pace is still very slow at the time. But if you see it starting to come up a little bit, gets to 93, gets 92 again during the 13 season. So like I said, super low in the early 2000s, then it starts to creep up a little bit. And then right here, 2013-14, the one I've highlighted, the Spurs win that championship, paces up to 94 per game, offensive ratings at 106 per game. And then the Warriors win that next season. Their offensive rating is basically 106 as well. And then here we go, pace is 94 for both teams. So pace is starting to come up. It jumps up about 2 possessions that season from the previous season. And then the point I'm going to make right here is basically that this is when, I'm not going to say there was no ball movement before this, but this is when the three-point style really was introduced into the NBA, and kind of the whole beautiful game concept with the Spurs. I'm not saying they invented this whole style, but they kind of started to get the first steps going for this. It was all about ball movement, all about corner threes, and just making the extra pass, passing, getting easy layups and wide open threes. And people forget the Spurs in 2014, when we beat the Heat, they're the more talented team than us. We're an older Spurs team, of course, but just with ball movement and accurate three-point shooting, we were able to win the championship. And then the Warriors played a very similar style to us, but they were like that Spurs team on steroids, of course, having Steph Curry and Klay Thompson taking your threes. You have two of the greatest shooters of all time, and then you have Harrison Barnes as well, and spotting up in the corners, and he's a great three-point shooter as well. Let's see here, though. Three-point attempts per game. 21.5 for the Spurs in 14 when they won, 22.5 for the Warriors in 15 when they won. So three-point attempts, they're coming up. They're pretty much coming up every single year, but still not a ridiculous amount. The game's still very, very fun to watch. The Heat had won it back to back, and the Spurs won, the Warriors won, and then I have to go over the champions by year. Actually, I have it over here. Yeah, the NBA is still super entertaining at this time, in my opinion. The Heat went back to back. Of course, I'm a Spurs fan, so it was heartbreaking for us to lose back-to-back championships, especially with the Ray Allen Game 6-3. But with that being said, it was super entertaining. The league is in a great place. We come back and win 2014. People are Spurs haters, I feel like, so people probably didn't love that. But I feel like the league was still in a great place. We had a super entertaining finals against the Heat. Warriors win 15. They won their first one. League is still super entertaining. The Cavs win. League is still super entertaining at that time. They win with LeBron going back to Cleveland. Then Warriors go back to back when Kevin Durant goes to Golden State, and I don't know, pick your spot. Some people will say when LeBron goes to Miami, that's kind of when the league started going downhill. I don't think that happened quite immediately. I think it was still pretty entertaining. But then when Kevin Durant went to the Warriors, I feel like that was just such an overpowered team. Toronto won, LA won the bubble championship, and the Bucks won, the Warriors won. Honestly, when KD went back to Golden State, things never really felt like they were as entertaining for me. Comment below and let me know what you think about that. But back to things evolving in the NBA as time goes on. Like I said, right here, after the Warriors won in 2015, the cat's out of the hat. Everyone has kind of the formula on how to win games. Just don't have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, of course, but just surround your roster with three-point shooters, ball movement, and shooting threes. Nobody was so much, I don't want to say nobody, some people were thinking, just get up as many as you can. Even at this point, it wasn't such a widespread strategy, but people were definitely looking at the three ball at this point, especially after Golden State won that championship. Because keep in mind, back then, people were saying, three-point shooting team cannot win the championship. Three-point shooting team cannot win the championship. I think y'all remember that being said. And then Golden State was the first, you know, team that used the three-pointer as their primary weapon that won the championship with two shooters, Steph and Clay, as their one and two options. You know, two three-point shooters. They were the first team to ever do that. And then if you look as well, here's three-pointer attempts. Right after that happened, three-pointer attempts did nothing but go up basically every single year since then. Now we're at 37.5 three-point attempts per game this season. So, you know, I feel like we'll no doubt break the record and finish at 37, 38 or so per game, which is just insane to think about. But yeah, the three-point attempts keep on going up. The pace, I wouldn't say it keeps on going up. It got to 100 again. Then it's, 99, kind of sitting around 99 or so. We're about to get to offensive rating in a second, but the point I made earlier, people always complain about the pace this, pace that, but it's not the pace of the game. The pace is still solid. It's not a super fast pace, like I said. Again, y'all had seen it, but back in the what's going on? This pace right here, but like I said, back in the 80s when Magic was winning, pace was over 100 all day basically. But the point is, this is what all the stat nerds see, though. You're gonna see right here and see the offensive rating, and it's just been all-time highs, and it just keeps staying at all-time highs and keeps getting better and better. Here is the 2018-2019 championship. I think the Raptors won that year. I have to check. Yeah, the Raptors won. But yeah, you see the offensive rating since this year. Since the Warriors won in 15, the offensive rating has gone up just about every single year. It just keeps creeping up and up. Did come down a little bit from last season so far, but it's at all-time highs. It was 115 last season. It's at 113.5 this season, so I wouldn't be surprised to see it finish over 115. So all the stat nerds, they're just seeing that, and the coaches see that as well, and they listen to the analytics people on their team, and they're just telling them, look how high your offensive rating is. Just keep running and gunning. Just play hard on the defensive end, as hard as you can at least, and then keep getting up those three balls. Again, something else I didn't even mention since that 15 championship when the Warriors won. People never mention the Spurs one from 14, but that kind of, like I said again, that kind of started to set it off because people started to realize, open threes and layups is kind of the way to go. But yeah, after the Warriors one, that's when people really started to realize this is the way to go. And if you see, here it is, three-point attempts. 22.4 after the Warriors one. And just done nothing but gone up and up since then. Let's see, 14-15. So yeah, 22.4 and 14-15. Now 10 years later in this season, it's at 37.6. So it's gone up. What is that? 15 three-point attempts more per game, which is crazy to think. But yeah, I want to say it's not so much the pace. It's more the offensive rating that people see once you get into the advanced stats and the advanced analytics. That's what people see. And then another thing too, see the points per game, 113, 114 back-to-back seasons. Before this season, 110, 112. Yeah, if we come back, if you get back to the Magic days, 109, 108, 108, 110. But so it was high scoring. I'm sure it was entertaining as well. But now you're seeing, 114, 114, 110, 112. So the points per game is a little bit higher, I guess, in the Magic days. But again, I didn't watch back then. I wasn't even born yet. But I bet it was way more entertaining than this is. I'll agree on that. The reason the players, make so much money, and the reason the league makes so much money is because they're entertainers. You're like an actor or like a musician or whatever you want to say. You get paid so much because you entertain all these people, and when you start to kind of water down things, and it becomes analytics, and it's just like, hey, we'll shoot all these threes all day. We don't care about entertaining the people. We just care about trying to win a championship. And if this is the best way to try to win a championship, we're going to do that. And that's what's happening now. And I don't blame the teams so much for doing that. That's their job, is to try to win championships. If this is the way, the easiest way to win a championship or the best way to win a championship, then that's how they're going to play. And I would do the same thing if I was like a GM for a team. I tell them to do the same thing. But at the same time, it's not the team's job to make sure the product's entertaining. That's the league's job. So now that you see the team starting to catch on and do all these threes and shoot all these threes, and the product's getting watered down and not as entertaining, ratings are down. A lot of people blame that on streaming services, but NFL ratings are at an all-time high, and people stream NFL games as well. Um, so yeah, it's something the NBA needs to do. The NBA needs to find a way. I don't know what it is. People talk about take away the corner three, make the three ball longer, bring back hand checking. My opinion is just not to fire all the refs, but bring in EuroLeague refs, teach our refs the rules of the EuroLeague. Honestly, I would say bring in EuroLeague refs for a whole season and tell the players just get used to this. Like, these are your new rules, get used to it, and I think it'll be much more entertaining. But please comment below and let me know what you think. If you made it to the end, please like and subscribe as well, and we look forward to seeing y'all next time.